So I ran a poll asking which game I should do for this video, and Robotrek won, which either makes complete sense or absolutely none at all, depending on how specifically you are into Super Nintendo lore. While New Horizons is a sequel to a title near the top of my tier list, and Shin Megami Tensei is fucking Shin Megami Tensei, this massive franchise nowadays, they both jobbed out to a game called Robotrek, because it was the product of a developer named Quintet, aka the people who made ActRaiser, Illusion of Gaia, Terranigma, Cult Classics, 3 of the most beloved on the Super Nintendo, some might say. Each of their titles are known for being thematically tied, centering around the creation and the meaning of life, mankind's dual nature, the impacts of evolution on societies and populations at large, existential topics, something you did not get much of on the Super Nintendo. Robotrek, however, shares almost none of these traits. Aside from Quintet's signature font and company logo, I guess, you would never know where this came from. People do not talk about Robotrek nearly as much as most other Quintet titles, and now after having beaten it, I must say, deservedly so. I completely understand why this game doesn't come up nearly as much as the other ones they've made. Because Robotrek is, in a word, uninteresting? No, that's not really fair. Maybe... In 11th grade, my English teacher asked me what I thought about a Shakespeare passage, to which I replied it was an unacceptable answer, of course, to an English teacher, because doesn't tell her anything. Just as it doesn't tell you anything when I call Robotrek. Anything can be to anyone for any reason. Saying something is is just a shortcut. It doesn't actually say anything about whatever you're talking about. Me calling Robotrek uninteresting is me admitting that in actuality I don't have much to say about this game. It's a failure on my part having to resort to such labels. And it's not like I can point to any one thing and state, here, this right here, this is why Robotrek is video done. Looking at these games doesn't quite work like that. In fact, I could do the exact opposite and then just bullshit and lie and say that I enjoyed the game, because I can point to concrete things that, at least on paper, are great, interesting, non-ideas. Its combat, for instance, grants you unlimited freedom. You build these robots, name them yourself, can equip whatever you want on them, can distribute stats any way you see fit, and if you don't like how you've built a robot, you can re-accolate all these stat points and equipment at will. You can even craft custom attacks by specifying what equipped item they should be able to use in which order. And of course, you name these yourself too. Robotrek contains some of the most customizable fighters, one of the most customizable battle parties I've ever seen, and boss fights are difficult enough that I would regularly lose on my first attempt, only for me to redistribute my stat points or change my equipment around to something that makes more sense for that specific boss. They actually need foresight and tactics to beat. I put more thought into my battle strategy here than in most other games for sure. I particularly enjoyed this one bit where you go back in time and you can do these little side quests that affect the game world back in present day. My favorite is this scenario where throughout the whole game these two families have had this long-standing feud, and when you go back in time you discover that it's all just based on a misunderstanding. Simply put, one individual believed that an item of his was stolen by a member of another family, when it turns out that it was just some mice that stored it away in their little mouse hole. You can bring the item back to him, and when you return to present day, those families no longer hate each other. And that's just one example. They sprinkled in a whole bunch. I admire Robotrek's use of key items. It feels much closer to King's Quest than any traditional JRPG. In Final Fantasy, to progress, how often is what you need to do go into your inventory and then use a specific item at a specific location? Most of the time, if a plot event requires specific items, characters will just automatically do whatever it is they need to do. There are rarely, if any, ever any actual puzzles requiring you to think about what items you have and then act accordingly. They never really build puzzles around inventory items. Robotrek, however, contains dozens of instances where a specific inventory item is needed to solve puzzles, such as blowing a horn you've had in your inventory the whole game to scare away some guards, or using a bottle of clean, which is a consumable item normally used to rid your robots of status ailments, though in this case, using a bottle of clean on a rusty drill you find so it can function again. Genius. this. And there are many, many even more clever examples than that. Yet, to me anyway, Robotrek is... Normally when I play a game for the channel, it's hardest to first start a new game. Sometimes I really need to psych myself up because not every game I go into equally is motivated. Sometimes I'm excited, but sometimes I just go in cold, which was the case here, and that's not uncommon. Then I work whatever the game I'm playing is into my daily routine. 9 times out of 10, I always end up getting engrossed. Every day looking forward to continuing my adventure, looking forward to playing whatever game I'm playing. If it doesn't happen at first, usually at a certain point, I'll just adjust to the crap factor, as the AVGN would say. I'll adjust to whatever the game is throwing at me and start enjoying myself. Even titles such as Lord of the Rings, an awful, putrid piece of software no matter how you look at it, I'm still enjoying myself. I'm not bored while I'm playing. I'm licking my lips going, oh boy, this video's gonna be good. I can laugh at certain elements, where with Robotrek that just sort of never happened. I beat this game, 21 hours, 33 minutes, and felt nothing. Motivation never came, inspiration for an awesome video idea never struck. I just sort of joylessly forced myself through it. Which begs the question, why? Why did I not gel with Robotrek? Quintet made quality stuff, and this game is no different. It's visually better than most of what you'd see on the Super Nintendo. It's constructed well, and after giving it some thought, it's not really a problem with Robotrek at all. It's a problem with me. For answers, I need to ask myself, why do I enjoy what I do? What do I value in a video game? A long time ago, in old internet or in magazine reviews, the reviewer would separate a game into different categories, like sound, graphics, gameplay, maybe story, or IGN's nebulous lasting appeal category. Here's how I would score Robotrek with this rubric, by the way. Graphics, 8 out of 10. Sound, 3 out of 10. Gameplay, 9 out of 10. Story, 6 out of 10. Lasting appeal, 5 out of 10, I guess. We've gotten away from that in the last 15 or so years. Compartmentalizing video games into separate categories like this will never convey the quality of a work. Over time, we've realized that it was just kind of silly doing it this way. After all, it's more about how these elements interact than how well they stand on their own. As I see it, there's at least 2 types of video game enjoyers. On one hand, we have John Romero. Games are like porn. A story is expected to be there, but it's not important. People who see this old rubric and think this way may believe that Robotrek is great because it looks good, and for an RPG, gameplay-wise, it's as engaging as anything else from 1994. Though I'd consider myself more of the opposite. Whereas the general gameplay, what you're doing on a minute-to-minute basis, isn't necessarily what matters most. Romero-ers may claim that graphics, sound, story, whatever the hell lasting appeal was supposed to mean, that it's their job to support, to prop up the gameplay, that is center stage, because after all, you play a game to play a game. So naturally, the gameplay should be king. Though oftentimes, I find myself gravitating towards titles with an inverse approach, whereas gameplay simply serves as a means to an end, as a way to deliver music, or to tell a story, or make a statement, or to show off some cool art design or imagery, to put yourself in this space and to use gameplay, even if that means making it annoying on purpose, to convey one singular vision. Coincidentally, Quintet's most famous title serves as a perfect example as to what I'm attempting to get across. Enter ActRaiser. Its side-scrolling segments are floaty, the collision feels off, it controls like shit, its town-building segments are entirely one-dimensional, and it doesn't feel like they balanced the difficulty hardly at all. And yet, none of that matters because what you are literally doing at any given moment is secondary. ActRaiser is a vehicle to deliver some pseudo-philosophy, biblical-esque art, imagery, and a fantasy of playing as God. When packaged together, Quintet created something special, despite it not being a technical masterclass. Look at the top of my tier list. Dragon Quest V? Basic. When you envision a generic turn-based RPG, you've just thought of Dragon Quest V. Doesn't matter. Not the point. Uncharted Waters? Repetitive. Reuses the same layout for every town. You spend 95% of your time simply traveling, sailing, waiting for your ship to get where you are going. Again, doesn't matter. Not the point. Final Fantasy III. Broken. Some characters' abilities, it's like they didn't even test. Again. Doesn't matter. Not the point. My last video, Deadly Premonition. A masterpiece. Though if we're scoring it based on the old IGN rubric, what would its gameplay score be? A 2? Wait, IGN actually did give Deadly Premonition a 2 out of 10. And that's an overall score, not even just a category score. Eric Birdving must be a gameplay as king absolutist. And nobody's wrong. People all value different things. Everything is an opinion. Non-biased, factual truth does not exist in the realm of video game criticism anyway. With that being said, Robotrek is... I'm not feeling what this game is attempting to deliver. It's cute, constructed with grade A materials, contains a combat system more robust than most, it has clever adventure game elements, yet it's also wholly forgettable. I was bored while playing. I'll never touch it. I'll likely never bring it up, or ever even think about it ever again. Anyway, I'm gonna put Robotrek into the meh tier. That's all I got. Remember, never trust anybody who needs a haircut. Goodbye.